Welcome back to Shat on TV Game of Thrones edition, the unofficial podcast companion piece to the hit juggernaut HBO series Game of Thrones. I am one of your hosts, Roger Roper, and alongside me are my two co-hosts, Big T, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And Gene Jormont Lyons.
Here I am with 1,000 ships and 2 good hands.
And this is our deep dive episode where we look back at this week's episode of Game of Thrones and share our insights, research, and opinions. This week's episode was entitled Dragonstone. It was the Season 7 premiere where Jon Snow organizes the defense of the North, Cersei tries to even the odds, Samwell discovers crucial information, and Daenerys comes home. Gentlemen, I apologize that I was on the plane. You guys did an amazing Instacast. We got a ton of fan email that has come in. I thought the episode was epic. Even the Ed Sheeran, or was it the Ed Sheehan? Who made the cameo?
Ed Sheeran. I'm glad we're not going to be discussing that at all tonight. We're going to stick to actual interesting stuff about the show and not that boondoggle. And some people have pointed out that there have been other cameos. For instance, I believe at the Purple Wedding, it was Sigur Rós played, and that's how you do a cameo. There could be a band. There could be somebody singing. They just don't need to be a talking character in the damn show.
Listen, I warned both of you. I said, if we do Game of Thrones, if we go and we embark upon this quest, if we enter into the Seven Kingdoms, we are going to be getting tons of emails. I call the actually emails, where people are going to push up the glasses on their nose and be like, actually, it's pronounced Arya. Actually, it's Ed Sheeran, and he was great. Actually, it's pronounced Maester. We got a ton of those. We will address all of those. Have no fear. Shat on TV. Your boy Raj is here to tell you that we will address all those in our small council email episode on Thursday. All the feedback that we received through the week. If you want to be part of that, email us hosts@shatontv.com. The other thing that we got in that I do want to address is, yes, we do know that this was not the only cold open. I think Big D in the Instacast, you said that there was another one. This was the second one. No, in fact, I think there were 4 total, including this one. So again, thank you for everyone. Please, I'm making a joke of it, but we do actually really appreciate you guys writing in, fact-checking us, because we want to be as factually accurate as possible.
Yeah, and the Instacast has gotten us in trouble before. Just remember, this is immediately after the show. You're sitting on the couch with your friend, and you guys, your mind's going a million miles a minute. You're shooting the shit. You're talking. You're not going to be perfect. That doesn't mean we don't know it. I asked Gene, hey, do you remember another cold open? He's on the spot. We're recording. So, yes, we appreciate you straightening us out, but the deep dive is for a little more research, and we're more cohesive and coherent in our thoughts. So bear with us, please, especially on the Instacast.
All right. For those who are new to Shat on TV on the Throne, welcome. Thank you so much. We put it out across all the feeds, so we're glad you're joining us. Hit that subscribe button. Follow us on social media. And we do things a little bit differently. As Big D mentioned, we do an Instacast immediately after we watch a show on Sunday. That drops late Sunday, early Monday, wherever you are in the world. Then we do a deep dive where we're actually going to go into different plot points. We don't go scene by scene like other podcasts do and explain in a linear format. We talk about big arching ideas, big plot points, and then we dive into those. We wrap up in about an hour, and then on Thursday, we take the best emails of the week, and we read and respond to them. You can actually look at all the emails that we receive on our website, shatontv.com, and there's a comment section where you can actually join the conversation. So with that being said, Gene, why don't you tell us what we've got on topics for tonight?
So this episode, although it was slower than we expected after season 6, especially with the amazing season 6 episode 10 that was fast-paced and furious, this one was a little bit slower. But on second viewing and after conferring with a lot of other fans, there was so much. It was a very rich episode with so many references to the rich history of this show over the last 60 episodes. So some things we're going to talk about is the dagger that we see in the book that Samwell is reading, the Catspaw dagger, and what that's all about. How far back the ancestry of this blade goes. We're going to talk about what Bran saw in his vision of the White Walkers and the Night King. We're going to talk about where the show ends. Where's the final destination going to be? What is the message that Game of Thrones has sent to us over these many years? We're going to talk about the scene where the Hound is staring into the fire and what the symbolism was there and what revelations there were in it. Also, the scene where Jon's leadership is questioned, what that tells us about the characters and who's right and who's wrong in that. Also, the wall, we've kind of talked in the Instacast about how it's going to come down for sure, but we didn't really discuss what the nature of that destruction would be. So we're going to go into that a little bit deeper. So this was actually, on second viewing, an amazing episode and told us so much about what we can see in the next 12 episodes that are left.
Yeah, I got to completely agree with you on that one, Gene. Yesterday, I felt the pacing was slow. There was something about it that didn't really strike me as what I'd expected from Game of Thrones. Today, watching it alone without a bunch of people in the room, quiet, I could sit and focus on it. I thought it was an excellent episode. The pacing was perfect. I had not a single complaint. I was actually even okay with Ed. So it was a strong episode, and that's why a lot of these episodes, you got to go back and watch them more than once.
All right. Well, with that being said, guys, the first topic, Gene, that you put here on the outline is the Catspaw Dagger. What exactly is the Catspaw Dagger, and when did we see it?
So Big D and I both did a lot of deep research into this. So Big D, please feel free to jump in if I'm missing or glancing over anything, if you have anything to add. But we're talking about the dagger. As Samwell is flipping through the forbidden books, he ends looking at a page that shows where Dragonstone is, but before that, he takes a long pause, almost comically long pause on a page before that, and you see this curved blade, and that's the Catspaw Blade. That's what it's referred to as. Now, we first saw this blade in Season 1, Episode 2, so this pretty much goes back to the beginning of the show. The blade was used in an attempt to assassinate Bran Stark, and Cat Stark got her hands on it and took the blade to King's Landing to learn more about it. Littlefinger told her it belonged to him before Tyrion won it from him in a bet. After that, it passed into Ned Stark's possession. So it makes sense that Littlefinger would be in possession of it on the show because Ned Stark died. He was complicit, if not directly responsible for that death. And we also see it passes into his possession in the book series. But we've seen many times in Game of Thrones, the TV show, that it deviates from the book. So it's very possible that anybody could have this. It could be lying around to be found. We don't know for sure where it is. So I don't really consider that a spoiler.
Yeah, and in fact, Gene, it was one of our listeners that wrote in pointing out this because it was a little inconspicuous. I didn't catch it. I only saw it once. You were the ones that went back on your second watch. It was a little bit more because I think it was Zap that actually wrote in and pointed that out to us, correct?
Right.
Okay, but this is the same dagger that's seen in some of the promotional shoots, correct?
Yeah, and we've seen before with the show that nothing appears on screen by accident. We're supposed to think that the big reveal on that page is that there's a large cache of dragon's glass underneath Dragonstone. But on the side is this blade that you can clearly see is the one from the beginning of the show. And yeah, it was tied. I don't think it is a spoiler to discuss because this isn't something that came out that was leaked out by someone on the show and wasn't intended to be released. But one of the covers of Entertainment Weekly, a promotional shoot, it's clear that you can see that Arya Stark has the blade on her side. I can't imagine that the show would let that slip if we weren't supposed to pick up on it, so I don't feel like it's a spoiler. But last time we saw the blade, it was in the possession of Ned Stark when he was Hand of the King. It was on his desk, I think, as he was having a conversation with Cersei in the room. Since then, it's gone. It's MIA. But we can assume that it's still somewhere in King's Landing. That's where Arya's headed. Do we think it's inevitable she's going to make it to King's Landing, and that's where she acquires this blade?
I think it could be one of two things. Either she gets to King's Landing and finds it there, or something takes her back to a reunion at Winterfell, and it's passed on to her there by somebody who was... So, like, say if Littlefinger still got it, and she ends up at Winterfell, she could get it from him.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this one of the blades that's known in the Seven Kingdoms to actually have dragonglass?
Not exactly, but Varys does, when he inspects it, does point out that it's Valyrian steel with a dragon bone handle.
Okay, got it. So, and we know Valyrian steel does kill White Walkers.
Correct, because we saw Longclaw cut through White Walkers when Jon Snow was wielding it.
Yeah, and the text in the book makes it clear that they weren't aware necessarily of its power to kill White Walkers. They discussed that the Valyrian steel and the dragon glass were combined for aesthetics.
Well, I mean, so you asked the question, is she going to steal this from Littlefinger? It could also mean that Littlefinger could meet his demise if it's in Arya's possession, right?
Yeah, remember that this knife is so unique. It is the smoking gun. This is a piece that could unravel Littlefinger, and it could actually lead to his demise. And I think it would be poetic if he was killed with the blade that started it all.
Now, Big D, you actually pointed out text in the book. Isn't there also text in that book that talks about Dragonglass and its relationship to grayscale?
Yeah, it's on one of the sides, and it's partially cut off. And this mentions that there is a healing property to Dragonglass and that it could possibly cure grayscale. Considering that the only person that we've seen cured of grayscale was Shireen, it could very well be that maybe a medication made from it, or maybe there's some way that it's used in a medical procedure. But this would be beneficial for Sam to learn since he's in the Citadel, and we've now seen that Jorah is there.
Yeah, I mean, again, we talked about on the preview show when we're going through those trailers. I just want to see him survive, and this is possibly one way. The next topic that we've got here on the outline, what did Bran actually see in the show? There's a whole herd of White Walkers, white giants moving through. What's happening there? What's happening in that scene? What is Bran actually witnessing?
So upon first viewing, I think we were all kind of amazed at just the beauty of the shot, and we didn't pay attention to the little details. It's extremely tempting to imagine that Bran's vision is immediately following the opening credit, and it's happening in real time. But it's possible that we're getting a glimpse into the past or into the future. We've seen that Bran has this ability before, whether it was his visions of the Tower of Joy, King's Landing with dragons flying over it, that he has the ability to time shift his vision. If you look in the foreground of the shot, it is grass. This is an area that was south of the wall that was clear to me that this is a future event.
I love that you described it as that we were taken by the beauty of the shot. I was taken by the fact that there were fucking zombie giants marching toward me. I was like, oh shit, that's not good. But it does speak, Big D, to exactly what you're saying, that this vision has got to be in the future, because there is no reason that they would show us a one-eyed giant unless it's 1-1. Like, that's got to be. And as we saw, 1-1 died at Winterfell. Ramsay Bolton shot him through the eye after he took a billion other arrows. This has got to mean that we're seeing the future, and we're seeing that Winterfell has been overrun. The only question I've got is, why the fuck wouldn't Jon and Tormund burn all the dead? I mean, they've seen enough White Walkers to just say, I would burn anybody I saw. I burn living people. I don't care.
That would make sense. Remember, they were burning bodies when they were at Castle Black because they were in such proximity to the wall and to the north that they were having people turn. If now bodies that are buried this far south are turning and reanimating, I can't imagine when they say thousands, I'm thinking tens and hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. Well, the next topic, Jon's leadership, and we talked about how he seems to put himself in precarious situations. Are we right to question his leadership?
Well, I think Gene put it well in the Instacast that Sansa and Jon are creatures of their own individual environment, and their decision-making is shaped by that. At the Wall, Jon learned the lesson that you have to look past one's differences and find a common ground, because the Black brothers weren't always on the same page. And I think that worked with the Wildings. And here, he's using that same strategy for the leaders who betrayed House Stark to join Ramsay. He has to.
Isn't it strange that he didn't learn that other lesson, that he got stabbed to death right after that? Like, it seems like he's completely forgotten the fact. I mean, not to mention, like, with Jon Snow, and you guys mentioned it, on the season preview. Like, you think he'd be a little more careful with his life at this point, but yeah, he is a bold and fearless guy, and that's and he wants. I really think that this guy really wants to believe in the good in everyone. I mean, you see that when he gives a second chance to the houses, when he has them pledge again the pledge that they broke, that the children should not suffer for the sins of their fathers. I really love Jon Snow, but man, he just sets himself up for the worst trouble.
So was that the right decision, though? What would you have done in that situation? Sansa steps in. She says, listen, perhaps we should punish the people who fought against our family. He says no, which I believe is the honorable thing. What would you have done in that situation?
You got to remember why Sansa's feeling that way. In King's Landing, she learned about the perils of placing honor above political strategy. And there you have to, it's a clear line that those who don't follow the rules, those who betray you, you kill them. You make it so that they can't betray you again. And Sansa's very weary of the mistakes that her father and Robb made. And she sees this as a clear mistake. If someone shows you they're not trustworthy, you take them down. But these are also the two closest strongholds to the Wall and to Hardhome, where we now assume that the Walkers are going to come. It makes no tactical sense to knock those buildings down or lose a potential fighting force, regardless of what the fathers did. I think he made the right move, and you can tell by the reaction in the room.
Yeah, but I mean, again, think about what is happening right now in Winterfell, right? You had the Starks that were overrun by the Boltons, and then, the Boltons were just now overrun. So there's all this shifting and changing of all these different houses. You had a bunch of men lost in the Robb Stark battle. You have to imagine these houses, and the only thing that we can compare to is like feudal England at the time. I mean, what better way to gain favor than, saying, listen, we understand these houses have been in your family. We're not going to take them away from you. Like, this is a different regime.
So one of the things to note there, though, is that concept of youth, and this is something that was brought, that really shone through in this show. The old guard is dying off rapidly, and the leadership that they're finding now in Jon Snow, in Sansa, in Lady Mormont, you're seeing these young leaders, and it's almost even reflected, if you think about it, in the infamous Ed Sheeran scene, in the scene that maybe these older soldiers for the Lannisters have been depleted, and they've got these young kids who are out there now fighting the wars, and they're a different generation, and they're a different sensibility. And so you might see that, what better way to find allies for life than to get to them while they're young? And young people inherently, with the exception of fuckers like Joffrey, inherently are idealistic, and so why not appeal to that?
You're at the point where you need every single able-bodied individual, regardless of gender, age. You need everybody to pick up a sword and take a spot on the wall. So we can't be destroying strongholds and playing political games. Even with every single able-bodied person in Westeros joining the fight, you still don't guarantee yourself victory. But I want to ask, to close this out, Jon's sense of duty, he is continuously trying to live up to his father's image. Do we think this is going to lead to him, you said he keeps making mistakes, to him getting killed again, that he's still just trying to fill his father's shoes to the point of he just won't learn?
Which father is he trying to fulfill?
The father that he believes.
I don't know if Jon actually can die, though. You see that with Beric as well, that once they're resurrected, that they could be resurrected over and over and over again. And if you think of it, they may be the polar opposite of a white, right? So maybe they would just keep coming back. We haven't established that he's even truly alive, in the sense of having working anatomy, a beating heart, and all that stuff, right? He could actually be something that is invincible. And I think that's a much more likely thing that we will witness in this show, that Jon cannot be killed rather than Jon will die again. It's weird to kill a character twice.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that. I'm going to save this for the Thursday podcast, because I came across an article where George was discussing this, that there could be polar opposites, that the white in the north, which is driven by ice, and the equivalent in the south that's driven and powered by fire. So I don't want to go too far into it, but I left it out of this because I wasn't too sure. But Thursday, where we have crazy theories, I think it would fit.
Yeah, this is the whole Star Wars. This is the whole George Lucas, right? It's got to rhyme. It's got to have, for every action, there's got to have a reaction, right? It's the light and the dark of the Force.
Oh, dude, if you want to talk about it that way, look at the way that they've set up all the powers here. It's all brother-sister pairs. Like, what's that all about? So you got the Starks, right? It's like brother and sister, and then you got the Lannisters, brother and sister, and then you got the Greyjoys, brother and sister. It's like, come on, guys. And then if you believe that Dany and Jon Snow are brother and sister, it's like, come on, like, we get it, brother and sisters. What's going on, George? What are you trying to tell us here?
Yeah, exactly. I know you said that was the last point you wanted to make, but I do want to ask this question. What does this mean for Jon and Sansa? I know that there was a lot of topics. Obviously, there was the narration that was on the trailers about, killing the one wolf, and is that good for the flock? And are we going to see more of this brother-sister relationship not working together, or are we going to see them actually work together? What's going to happen there? I
feel like this show needs to make amends for the death of Ned Stark. I think that his legacy needs to be honored. It feels right. And to me, there's a one rule that you've seen with the Starks, is that they are not opportunistic. They don't turn on each other. And I'd like to see that carry through. There is a genuine fondness between Sansa and Jon Snow, And I feel like that will carry on. They may diverge, they may conflict, but ultimately, I think that these two will stick together, and I think Arya will stick with them too. And it'll be a counterpoint to the Lannisters to see that they are opportunistic, they are politically wise, and Tyrion's off doing his thing. Jaime is questioning his worth and his ability to stay relevant to Cersei. I think that's it's just a nice contrast.
So moving from Bran's vision, which could be the future, to another individual character who saw a vision as well, the Hound, when he's hanging out with, I believe, Gene, you called it the BWBs?
That's correct, BWB.
The Brotherhood Without Banners, he's taken over to the fire, he looks into it, and he starts spouting off these things. Now, at first, when I was watching this, I thought, well, he's just telling them things he wants to hear. He's telling them things that if I'm a religious zealot, if I truly believe in this kind of nonsense, the Hound's been around, right? He's going to pick up things. He was hanging out with Ian McShane. He knows what these crazy people like to hear, even though he may not believe it. Do you believe he actually saw a vision, or is this a tale of more things to come? Is this foreshadowing what may happen down the road?
I think he clearly saw something. The Hound has questioned religion from the very beginning. He's not just lacking of faith. He seems to be anti-religious. He finds people who are devout to be, I think he calls them, dull. But the transformation that he's made over the last few seasons, becoming more human, has also been, seems like, a quest for finding purpose and for faith. In the beginning, when he's having a conversation with Beric about why the Lord of Light would continue to choose him, why is he worth it? Why is he the one to be brought back from the dead, that he knows hundreds of men better? It's almost as if the Hound is trying to find his purpose and find a faith.
Yeah, I agree. And you see that he's starting to feel a lot more remorse. That was not something that was really in his profile, earlier in the show. I like that it was incremental. A lot of shows that we watch, we have complaints, like we saw in American Gods, like we saw in Taboo, where people just overnight just kind of switch, and it's just quick writing, and I get it. Audiences are impatient. But one of the things that Game of Thrones has this swagger, it has this confidence where we're going to let these people develop very slowly over several seasons, but it's so much more believable. His interactions with Arya, his interactions with the Brotherhood Without Banners, like, he is just a composition of all these different interactions, and you see him, that scale tipping little by little. It makes him such a more interesting character.
Well, I think in doing my research for this On the Throne podcast that we're doing here on Chat on TV, I went back and I binge watched all of season 6, and Ian McShane we all love because he's part of American Gods and he was in Deadwood and he's one of our favorite actors, right? He played Septon Ray, right? And I think that was the character where the Hound finally saw someone who lived the message, who lived and believed the religious talk that he preached, right? Could you compare Septon Ray to almost like a Jesus of Nazareth character? And do you believe that that's what Game of Thrones, the showrunners, were going for?
Well, I think you had that, again, we're talking yin and yang in this show. I think he's supposed to be the counterpoint to the High Sparrow, right? He's a guy who wants nothing more than to live the message and is willing to very easily die for it. He will not raise arms.
Yeah, and I think the Hound saw himself in Septon. And I think that was the turning point for him. And then he comes across the BWBs, and the BWBs, obviously he thought that they were in cahoots with those thieves. And Beric obviously is a good dude. He's like, no, these guys, they're not us. But I think he was still a little bit wary of Beric and the BWBs until he actually maybe saw something in the fire.
Yeah, he definitely did. But the Hound for the last few seasons, and even going all the way back to season 2, I went back and started season 1 and rewatched. And in the Battle of Blackwater, when the Hound is right before the attack occurs and Stannis' fleet, he's in the brothel having a drink, and Bronn is there, and they're having a conversation. And the Hound always has a self-loathing component to his personality. I've killed women. I've put them in the ground. So have you. I've done terrible things. It's almost as if he's trying to find forgiveness. And I think Septon Ray is the first one who told him, you can get past it. You are not the sum of all of your past actions. And maybe in Barrack, he sees a potential for himself to be resurrected and to find a positive purpose in life.
But all right, so let's dive into what he says here. So if it's true, what he's saying, I believe the quote here written down is ice, a wall of ice, the wall, it's where the wall meets the sea. There's a castle there. There's a mountain, looks like an arrowhead. The dead are marching past, thousands of them. What is he describing here?
Oh, he's definitely describing Eastwatch by the Sea, which is the closest castle to Hardhome. It's the same castle that earlier they were referenced when Jon was asking Tormund and the Free Folk to go man the castle that was closest to Hardhome. This is the eastern portion of the wall where it meets the sea. But you ask, did he really see this? The Hound is not someone who is easily tricked by parlor tricks, that he could be convinced he's seeing something. He's a true skeptic. For him to see such a detailed vision that we know is factually accurate, he had to have seen it. This isn't the first non-believer to see something in the fire. Stannis also was shown a vision in the fire by Melisandre. So it is possible, but that was some detailed vision. I was half hoping that they would somehow digitally show us the vision that he was seeing in the fire, but yeah, I believe it's real.
Do you believe it's more powerful that they didn't actually show a digital rendering, or they didn't show the visual? Is that better, Gene? You are the biggest critic that we have when TV shows try to. I think they elevator it down. What was your take on this?
I'm so glad you brought this up, Raj. This is a fine and perfect example of my hugest complaint about American Gods. This need to depict everything when the technology doesn't support it, when we don't need to see it. You know, I go back to live theater. I love seeing live theater. And one of the things about live theater is the imagination plays. You know, you let the actor doing the work. And Rory McCann is a strong enough actor. Let him look into firelight and tell you what he sees. And you can see it too in your head. Also, if you were to depict it, you may have too much of a spoiler for what people are calling Clegane Bowl 2017.
So you talk about the Clegane Bowl, Gene. We got a couple emails that I think are along the same line of thinking that you're. What is this? What is this mountain with an arrowhead? What is it? What are you thinking this means?
Okay, so I'm watching the episode and they say it, and I'm like, oh damn, because the first thing that I was saying earlier, and when we see Euron Greyjoy approach the throne, and we see the mountain with his new armor, and that helmet was very distinct, and it's different from previous seasons. So he's got this new badass armor. It looks great. And so as soon as, the Hound says a mountain shaped like an arrow, I'm like, well, there's the mountain, and his helmet is shaped like an arrow. So I'm not sure it's going to go there, but I think my mind went there, and a lot of other people's did too. And so I went online to see what other people thought, and immediately you start seeing the references to Clegane Bowl, which is fantastic.
The theory goes way back to people suspecting that there would eventually be a trial by combat that would pit the brothers against each other. I don't think we're going there. I don't think he had a vision of the mountain. I think it's a nod to the audience, much like the Hound digging a grave in this episode is a nod to a character in the book that is believed to be the Hound, who is a grave digger. I think it's just a nod. But I think this is really a turning point for the character. We've seen his transition over the last few seasons, but this is it. He was at the bottom. He was struggling to believe in anything. Now, it would be ironic if he finds salvation in fire, which is the object that has been his torture since his brother held his head to that fire. And his fear could actually turn into the component that actually gives him strength.
So he's burying the dead. He sees in his vision what we all assume to be White Walkers, or the dead walking. Obviously, I assume the Hound has heard these stories, right? Why is he not burning them?
I think that a couple things. One is I don't think that people are well versed. I mean, unless you've been at Castle Black, you're not really well versed in what to do. Like it's like zombie survival books, right? Like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So I think one is I don't think anybody imagines that the army would get that far south. I mean, this is really his first exposure of even seeing it. Two, people believe in the strength of the wall. It's hard to believe that anything can get past that. And then beyond that, it's just he just may not be educated on what you're supposed to do. I mean, I've had discussions with people. Does hellfire kill the whites? What does fire, if you just shoot fire at them, does that work? Can dragons kill them en masse? We don't know yet.
Yeah. Well, you talk about that wall, and the next topic we want to talk about, will that wall come down? And if so, how will it?
Yeah, I mean, you guys discussed in the season preview that the wall is probably not constructed by man. It's too big, but it also doesn't look like a natural feature. So the only thing left logically is that some magic was involved, and I think that would leave it open to a very rapid disintegration.
Yeah, they make a point to show that when Bran broke the Weirwood charm last season, when the Night's King put his mark on him, that was what allowed the walkers, the White Walkers and the Whites to actually enter and kill the Three-Eyed Raven and poor Hodor, was once you broke that magical seal, it didn't need to be some explosion, some clear visible sign that you've done it. So simply because Bran now entered the wall and we didn't see it collapse, we didn't see something grand happen, doesn't mean that the Night's King can't now come to the wall and do much like he did, just rip it in half. And I could see that would be a perfect show-stopping way to end the season.
So if we could marry the two here, we see Bran go through Castle Black, through the gate through Castle Black, right? That's not the Eastern Castle that the Hound saw. Okay, all right. So that is Castle Black. That's Castle Black. Okay. Are the White Walkers going to go through Castle Black, or are they going to try and go towards the Eastern Gate? What should we believe here as the viewer?
It depends if you believe the vision. It would make the most sense that they were last seen, the mass was at Hart Home, which is on the east. They're not going to take a detour.
That makes sense. But like, if I just don't understand. So the mark that the Night King puts on you, that he can put on any three-eyed raven or any type of person. I apologize. Again, I'm not a Game of Thrones head. I don't know all the terms, but there's something, I know you have a name for it if you see these type of visions like Bran has. What is it called?
Are you serious?
Warging?
Hold on. It's warging, but you're going to get me. I got shit on for saying Meister instead of Maester, and you wanted to say you don't know what warging is?
I listen, I'm admitting that I don't.
So at the premiere party that we had, Tyler put Maloney. He put he made a drinking game for us. I just gave him a whiteboard and I said, just write down anything you can think of. And so we're like, nudity, dragons, magic, any of those you got to drink. If a named character dies, you got to finish your whole drink. And then on one of them, we just put drink if anybody wargs out. And I was like, and I just started laughing because I was like, are we calling it warging out now? And I go, I don't think we're going to see that in episode. And then like immediately you see Bran warging out. And we're like, oh, all right, there we go.
All right. So if I'm warging out and I see the Night King, why, when I'm in a vision, when I'm warging out, if he puts his hand on me, why all of a sudden is the magic crack?
It's not. He's marked you. He can now track you. He can now follow you. It's no longer that you have free range, that you can't just jump in and out. But I really don't think we should ask an open-ended question that I'm sure somebody with lots of book knowledge is going to tear us apart.
No, actually,
yeah,
write in, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, listen, we see this happen in season 6. You talked about the scene with Hodor. It's a terrible emotional scene. In fact, I had to fast forward it during my binge watch of season 6. For that to happen to the wall, doesn't that feel more like kind of an end of the season or maybe next season kind of situation? Not so early in season 7.
No, I think it would make a perfect end of this season.
Oh, okay.
If the final shot was the wall being ripped open or the wall coming down and then we just see the giant army of the dead amassed on the other side, I think that would be an epic show-stopping end. Way to do the season.
I just love the memes that have come out recently. You guys have heard about the big iceberg that's broken off from Antarctica, the size of Delaware. I love how people are posting that meme and saying like Game of Thrones season 7, like the wall is finally coming down.
The interesting thing is I imagine that I would love if they just left the White Walkers out for a while, and then you've got some other battle coming on, and then just like the Knights of the Vale, they just show up like they're in the middle of a battle and everybody's killing each other. All of a sudden, boom, they're like the Whites are in the house, like just fucking that third party that comes in and just starts slaughtering,
just sucker punching people.
Well, Big D, you talked about the end of season 7. What do you think of this show? How do you think this show is going to end? This is the last topic that we're going to round up our deep dive with. Where does this show end? If it's not with the wall coming down and the White Walkers amassing on the side and the Knights of the Vale showing up and everyone warging out, what happens?
Well, when I wrote this, I didn't mean where does the season end. I meant the show. Where is this? Where is the ultimate destination? And more, I'm feeling like it's not going to be a positive, ending that everyone's looking for. Where we're always questioning who's going to end up on the Iron Throne, who's going to survive. I'm more and more leaning towards no one survives, and that this could be a cautionary tale about humanity's hubris and that we feel invincible. Every character in this show takes the White Walker threat lightly. They think, in the past, we've overcome this. This isn't a real big threat. This clearly feels different than everything that's happened before. And George loves to kill our beloved character. Wouldn't it be a perfect ending to the show if the White Walkers actually win and take out humanity?
I mean, it'd certainly be better than Dany and Jon sitting on the throne together with little dragon babies.
Well, I mean, this is essentially, I think, Big D, you put it on Twitter today, that this is essentially global warming, right? For years, everyone thought that the apocalypse was happening with every major war or plague or World War I or World War II or the Cold War or Vietnam or the Afghan War and Desert Storm and Desert Storm 2 and Desert Storm 3 and Korea and China. And, everyone thinks that is the apocalypse, but really the big threat to humanity is global warming, right? Is climate change. The fact that, this could have severe effects on how crops are grown and, the levels of water and safe drinking water that could wipe out entire populations. And there's a segment of the population that doesn't believe this shit. That says, oh, this is all fake. This is all, this has happened before and it's going to happen again and we're going to be fine. No, not this time, guys. We're done for. If we don't fucking change our ways. So what I'm saying is, this is basically what did you call it, Big D? The inconvenient what?
I don't remember what I called it. I said the inconvenient truth that I said, in the end, are you trying to show us that the White Walkers are a metaphor for global warming? But
yeah, exactly.
Remember, the basic plot of this show is about houses competing with each other. They're fighting over power. And they're never really working together to come to fight a common enemy or common cause. Everyone's looking out for themselves.
Yeah.
And in the end, I think it would be very poetic if that same trait, which served them well, fighting for the Iron Throne, was the ultimate demise of the entire world. The Maester's notes that through the ages, no matter how many times doomsayers thought that the world was going to end, the wall held back the forces of evil each winter. That's more than potentially foreshadowing. That even echoes like Harry Potter in The Sorcerer's Stone. You remember? He said, as long as Dumbledore's around, Harry's safe. I don't think that wall is always going to be there.
Gene, does that check out?
Yeah, it's true. And, Nicholas Loris from the Daily Signal wrote this great article or editorial piece on Game of Thrones secretly being about global warming. And one of the things he pointed out, if you want to go even further on this, now we're getting tin hat here, is you can say that the free folk represent the poor of the world, right? They suffer the consequences of other people, the rich who live south of the wall, not addressing this issue. Because honestly, if you took the Seven Kingdoms and took every army in the Seven Kingdoms and took all the leadership and all this firepower and actually turned it toward an invading army, you might stand a chance. But otherwise, if everyone isn't band together, they're fucked.
Yeah, but that's the question. Do you see them capable of banding together?
No.
Because if they don't all come together, there is no way they come out on top.
Well, what's going to happen is they're all going to come together. They're all going to sign a Westeros treaty that will, open up, technology and markets to change their ways and to fight this evil that's coming. And then one king's going to, get elected or take the throne, and he's going to be like, you know what? Fuck it. We're all going back to coal.
I think the best part about this podcast is that nobody who is going to complain about the show will listen this far in, so they won't be like, "What the fuck happened? This was going so well," and then you dickheads started talking about global warming.
Yeah, no, but listen, I do agree with you though that Big D. I think it would be more of a poetic ending. I don't want to see this is not a happy show. I have to agree with you. I don't want to see dragon babies. I don't want to see them holding hands at the end. I think this show ends with, on a sad note, or kind of on a, maybe we should fucking change our ways. And then, then Fox News is going to fucking protest it or some shit like that.
But I could see a potential ending where they do band together and they're about to win the fight, and Cersei turns on everyone else in an attempt to be the last one standing, dooming everybody. It's like if you think about a sinking ship and there's a lifeboat there and people swamp the lifeboat because everyone's trying to get in, dooming everyone else. I could picture Cersei trying to stuff one last person on the boat and just sinking it.
Yeah, she's the one more titmouse on the boat, basically. Yeah. Anyway, titmouse is a actual creature.
What's it doing on a boat?
Titmouses are like rodents. They would be castaways on ships. They would infest the seafaring vessels and get into the food rations and cause disease, and that's how the plague spread across Europe. Anyway.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to question or get on me right now for pronunciation or the fact that we've just gone off the rails, it's 1:58 a.m. in the East and we're recording. So please be kind.
Well, that concludes this week's episode of Shat on TV Game of Thrones Deep Dive Edition. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're everywhere, including Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram. Just follow @Shat on TV. Our Facebook site is Shat on TV Podcast. Just search for that. Our website, where you can join the conversation. You can check out all our podcasts. You can find out everything about Shat on TV, including our fan email, is shatontv.com. If you want to be part of the conversation, you want to be part of this podcast, you want to correct us on our pronunciation, you want to fact check us, you want to be a spoiler, you want to say, well, this is how I think is really going to happen, you want to put on your tin foil arrow-shaped crown or helmet like the mountain and write into us. Our email address is hosts@shatontv.com. Every Thursday, we do a spoilery, read and respond email that you, the audience, really lead that conversation.
And if you want to talk about the emails that are coming in, I've already I've read through the first, 15 or so that we received. And those 15 were sent like within an hour or two of it being released. There is some brilliant shit on there. We mentioned before, Zap wrote in a great one. Gillian, a regular listener for years now. Is it years now? A year now? I don't know.
Well, technically, it's year 2, so it is now years.
Yeah. Gillian, God, we've been doing this a long time. Gillian she wrote in a masterpiece of an email. So it is going to be a strong episode on Thursday. I'm very proud of all the listeners and the amazing work that they're doing right now.
Yeah, we're only as good as you guys are.
Yeah, also, if you want to help us out, we are new. We jumped in here season 7. So if you have a couple minutes, please just go. Raj always asks for a 5-star. My wife tells me that's not nice to do. If you guys can head over to iTunes, wherever you rate your podcast, just give us, if you want to do a 5-star, it'd be nice, but it really helps, especially at this beginning stage, because not every podcast plays nice, and some will just start giving 1 stars without explanations. So just, if you got a second, just go hit the like button.
Hey, we're not fucking standing on the side of Westeros or the King's Road begging for Patreon money. All we're asking for are 5-star reviews. That's it. That's all we're asking for. All right. Anyway.
Also, big thanks to everyone who has been listening, has been subscribing, just helping us jump up those ranks on the rankings. That gets us visibility, so it allows us to find an even bigger audience and really share this work with everybody. We do this from the bottom of our hearts with no compensation, so we love you, and thanks for all you do for us.
Fucking top 7 today, guys. TV and film. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Anyway, we're everywhere fine podcasts can be found, on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and share with a friend. That really helps the podcast grow. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat the Movies, where we review 80s and 90s movies. Right now we're on a hiatus, but we just did Caddyshack, and we're going to be releasing the best of during this Game of Thrones season. But we're fully dedicated to the Seven Kingdoms for the next 8 weeks. On behalf of my co-host Big D and Gene Jormont Lyons, I'm Roger Roper. Be sure to join us on Thursday for our fan email episode. I think we're entitling The Small Council, although I do want to give a shout out to I think it was Richard on Twitter who suggested the Red Keep Diaries. Red Keep Diaries, so fucking good. So the Small Council / Red Keep Diaries. I think that's what I'm going to be calling it. So thank you so much for listening. Take care. Good night, and be sure to knock twice before you join us on the throne.